Welcome back, everyone, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BETSPERTS. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christenson, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Andy Molitor. And Andy, I know it's one of your favorite days of the year. The NBA is here. NBA time. NBA time. And we'll talk about football first, but I know how pumped you specifically are for today. Almost as excited as Peter.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be less hateful of the sports I don't really bet on or care about this year. Although I'm more just stressed out that college basketball starts in 3 weeks, and I'm clearly not prepped. So probably going to take a big chunk of my Saturday, work on that. It's the Zozo Championship. It is the NBA starting 3 weeks college basketball. We're in the really in the heart of the NFL season where everybody's injured. Baseball has been electric. The Braves, again, have had 2 walk-offs. Can't walk it off tonight, but they will try to compete in a tough one. And what else we got? I think there might even be some early college football yet this week. Is there a Tuesday game? Stuff. Yeah, I feel like we're starting to get to the point of the season where we're going to have some of these games. It looks like we have a Wednesday game, Coastal Appalachian tomorrow, and then obviously there's always Thursday and Friday football. But college football on Wednesdays, which is awesome. I love that when we have midweek stuff like this. But yeah, last night game was
weird.
Yeah, I went back and looked through that box score. I think I still would bet the Bills again. I wish I would have bet them earlier in the week, even though that number would have lost too. I just feel bad about having the worst of the number practically. But yeah, when you get 34% of your total yards on 2 plays between the Henry run and the crazy Julio catch, the box score is going to look a little weird. It was a tough game for the Bills. And yeah, that again, anyone who tells you they should have kicked the field goal at the end is probably a lunatic. Like, people do not realize that like a tie, people treat a tie like a win. Like, oh, we got to overtime. Oh, we lost the coin toss. Like, it's still pretty much a coin toss. And the way the Bills defense was at that point, I'm not sure I'd give them the 50-50 in overtime. I would have probably had, if I was setting live lines, I would have opened the Titans a favorite before they won the coin toss in overtime. Although the Bills were moving the ball to it. It would have probably, like, honestly, the overtime would have come down to the coin toss.
It was just so strange to see them, come out in the third quarter, and not that they dominated the third quarter, but they win the third quarter 11-7. It's like, all right, the Bills are back. It should sort of be okay. And then, we switch quarters. Fourth quarter goes right back to the Titans. It was kind of a strange game. Chris Broussard apparently reporting that Taylor Lewan was traded right before being injured, I heard. So that's tough for the Bills to acquire left tackle and then have him go down like that shortly.
Oh, just rough.
It's
Chris Broussard is an NBA. Let's just leave it at that. That was although imagine him on the Bills, man. Healthy Lewan on the Bills. That would be a big boon to their offense.
It's just another great Derrick Henry game. I mean, sometimes it's, people say running backs don't matter. And I think generally they're probably right about that. But every once in a while, you get somebody, we had Adrian Peterson, however many years ago that was when he was at his peak. And it seems like Derrick Henry for these couple seasons is kind of the exception that proves the rule. I mean, you look at this 20 carries, 143 yards, and it's not like the Bills, they don't have the best defense in the world, but they weren't necessarily planning for anything else besides Derrick Henry running at them over and over again. And yes, he has the 1 big yard, but 3 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry. Good God.
Yeah, monster day from him. It's going to take some soul searching when I do some updating on my power rankings this afternoon. I'll have new power rankings out this afternoon. I'll put my top 10 up to be ridiculed again by the Twitterverse and prep for basketball. These don't start till later. So Nets at Bucks. So that's a Midwestern game. I suppose that's a normal evening start time for a nice game in Milwaukee. And then of course we get a West Coast game in Warriors Lakers. And this is just like the NFL. Like, how long have these lines been up, Alex?
A month, maybe a month and a half at this point, a little bit longer, some of them. I mean, the Christmas Day lines are even up. I mean, as you guys know, books like to put stuff up. In the NBA, they're a little more hesitant and I think a little more reticent. Some places will put out NFL lines for the first several weeks. But given, how much injury stuff changes in the NBA and the fact that games turn over so quickly, They generally just go with the first night games. Yeah, these have been up for a little while. The lines have been kind of pushed around. The Bucks net spread you see here 1.5. This hasn't moved too much, I think, from the open. Maybe the Nets open -1 or something like that. I'm trying to remember. I'll pull that up. But again, it sat right here around -1 or so towards the Bucks. The Bucks take a little money again, but going from 1 to 1.5 is nothing. What has moved though is the total. You look at the total of 234. This was in the 240s when it opened. I think it was 240, maybe just over 240. It's gotten a lot of support from the under. As you guys know, I liked Nets unders last year to a less than exciting degree. If I go back and take out all the Nets totals from my results, Andy, the year looks pretty good. So I'm not going to go back to the well there. I do like the under for a lot of particular reasons that I'm actually going to take the first half under. So it's sort of a bit of a cop out here, Andy. Nets Bucks first half under 118.5. A couple things working here. One of the nice parts about some of these derivative markets, they're a little slower to react to some of the moves than other spots. You've seen the total move from 240 down to 234. This has only moved a point or two. So I think we're getting a little ahead. This will probably come down a little bit later. I look at the angles here. Again, it's early in the season. It's tough to make some numbers for these teams. They are generally the same. So I feel maybe a little more confident about this game than some of the other games. Even the second one, we'll talk about that one a little bit. But James in general, I have this right around 115.5, 116 myself. You go back and look qualitative stuff again. Not stuff that I build into my model, but I always like to look at things like this. It's the first game of the season. First games of the season tend to go towards the under, especially in the first half. And we also have a championship team in its first game tonight. And you go back and look at that. I was only able to go back about 5 years, but in the 5 years I went back, the first half unders are 4-1 in those situations. You have these kind of funky ceremonies that mess up the warm-ups for teams. Generally what you have is teams warm up, they come in, do the introduction for lineups, and we play. But you have about a 5-10 minute ceremony. I'm sure that there'll be tonight with a banner and all that sort of stuff. So I think, again, qualitatively, and these aren't the best ways to handicap things, but it makes a difference to kind of throw people off in the rhythm like this. So again, only was able to go back 5 years, but looks like a pretty nice angle on top of the fact that my model already likes the under. We have some market support on the total. A lot of things lining up here, Andy. So we'll go for a first half under before we get to the Warriors-Lakers game. What do you think?
The nice part about a first half under compared to a full game under, no such thing as first half overtime. Just does not exist. They will not play any extra minutes if it is tied. Let's say this is tied at 55 at halftime. They will not play any overtime. So that's how unders go to die in most of your games. It feels like. So all right, yeah, Warriors Lakers late game. The overrated Lakers is what I'm being told by all my NBA people, which is good because F them.
And this one's tougher to project. The Lakers have only 3 players that were on the team last year. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Talon Horton-Tucker, who will be missing this game, are the only people left from last year's team. We've talked a couple times. They've made the Westbrook trade. A lot of other players moving in and out. This opened right around 4.5. There was some 5.5 in spots. So the Warriors taking money, which makes sense. A pretty solid team. You start to look at some of the matchups tonight. We'll talk about PrizePicks in a little bit, but should be a great night for Stephen Curry. There's not a single player on this Lakers roster that should be able to stay anywhere near him defensively. Even LeBron James, if he commits to trying to do that, will struggle at this point in late in his career. This will be his 19 seasons, folks. We're up almost 20 years of LeBron James. It's pretty nuts. So I like the Warriors here. I think the market picked the right side. This number looks just about right to me. I had it about 2.5, 3. Again, tough to project games this early, but Warriors are the right side. It's hard for me to find a way to attack this. We were going back and forth. I can make a case for an under in this game. I can make a case for an over in this game. Tend to lean towards the over. I think the Lakers' changes lead to a worse defense. And again, the matchups here are pretty tough on both sides. I think there's a lot of reasons to think LeBron James and Steph Curry, specifically Curry, should have put up a lot of points tonight. So kind of staying away from this game. We'll probably do some stuff with DFS for fun with Curry and whatnot.
I dig it. Yeah. Speaking of DFS, our official DFS sponsor of here. That's not my sentences are. I'm struggling today, Alex. Me no speak good, but the official DFS sponsor of BETSPERTS, Brown Bag Bets, and everything else I do is, of course, PrizePicks. And tonight, basketball PrizePicks starts. We are going to probably do some multi-sport entries. That's the fun part too. You don't have to
basketball, hockey, and baseball.
Yeah, you don't have to pick 2 football ones. You can do a football one with a basketball leg. You can do mixed parlays and whatnot with it. So, yeah, any Nets Bucks entry tonight for new users gets you free $25 if Giannis is able to get over that 0.5 points scored mark. So some free cash there on top of the normal $100, up to $100 deposit bonus, 100% match for new users. And yeah, let's get involved with some NBA stuff. I'm going to take a look at this afternoon, see if there's any sneaky dumb ones that I can play. I like to maybe play some guys off the bench.
Yeah,
You can stress that because I feel like the numbers on like Giannis points and things like that, those are going to be sharp. I'm going to go find some bench guys and play like over 1 assists or something.
Yeah, I think you look at maybe some Bruce Brown stuff. With Kyrie Irving being out, he should be the starter here for the Brooklyn Nets. And maybe look for combos for him. He's somebody that doesn't necessarily score a bunch of points, but you'll look down. He has 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. All of a sudden, it really kind of fills up the stat sheet there. So maybe some Bruce Brown stuff. If you wanted to go to the bench, Patty Mills should have a lot of success tonight. The Bucks generally struggle with some of their guards off the bench. Sometimes with these smaller players like him. I don't mind Patty Mills if you wanted to look for somebody there. The Lakers game's going to be tough. It's hard to figure out what's going on there. There's too many sort of players in flux. But don't mind some Jordan Poole. He's probably starting, but he's another lesser-known name that might be fun.
Maybe I'm going to go with Kent Bazemore over 1 3 points made. I want no part of that, actually. So, all right. Off the bat, somebody in the chat. Oh, it's just Matt. Matt mentioned
the Zozo.
The Zozo. This is not in America. This is elsewhere. This is a Japanese tournament. It's fun. So a no-cut event. It's another goofy one like that. We have some goofy events this time of year. It's a smaller field. There's a bunch of Japanese golfers in it that probably people have not heard of. I don't think any of them really have a strong chance at competing. There might be some guys that sneak into the top 20, but these are guys that play on the Japanese tour. Although back in the Olympics, remember that I did back a guy. It was a guy from Africa, although he was clearly European and was just born in Africa. So he's blonde. And remember this? I'm going to have to go back and find this guy. I bet that guy, because he played on the Japanese tour and he was familiar with the course. I played him in a 3-ball in like the first round of the Olympics. I'm never going to remember what this guy's name was. So anyway, the Zozo, a couple of guys I took a look at here off the bat. There's some heavy favorites up at the top with some of the big names. Some of the top names are
Phil's playing this week, right?
6-1. Phil is about even money to win the senior event. Like if you,
sorry, is that where Phil is? Sorry,
yeah,
I can't remember if it was this or somewhere else.
If you can find like 2-1 on Phil, probably just bet it, parlay it with something like Phil. Phil could probably boat race that complete the rest of the tour.
We have alt spreads. Could we do like a Phil alt spread?
Yeah, he
Phil
might have to.
-5.
I wonder how many strokes he's going to give his playing partner for the cash game. He's probably going to have to give him 5 or 6 in some of these. But yeah, Siwoo Kim, Maverick McNeely, and Eric Van Rooyen, former Gopher. All these numbers are bad numbers. I picked the worst numbers in the market on purpose. You can get much better numbers than this. I bet Siwoo and Mav at 33 and EVR at 40. These are just the Chris numbers, which is anytime. Here's a quick lesson, I guess. Anytime a market-making book like Bookmaker has way worse numbers on somebody than you can find elsewhere, it makes you feel a little better. Like if you're finding the best, if you find the best of the number at a market making book, you should feel bad about betting that number. Like it shouldn't give you a warm fuzzy at all. It should be the opposite. So the fact that I'm finding Siwoo down at 25-1, although maybe it's just their hold is weird today. I've heard some comments about this in general, but a couple guys that have been playing well over the last little bit. Obviously, Mav McNeely placed second at the Fortinet. A few, that was about a month ago at this point. Something all these guys have in common, they all missed the cut at the Shriners for some reason. But obviously, Siwoo played pretty well through September, had a couple top 10s in there. EVR played well in October, had some nice finishes in the playoffs. And then Mav, well, it was an okay finish last week. He obviously had a really nice finish 2 weeks ago. So just some guys a little further down the board that are playing well. No real kinks in the armor as far as anything outside of Siwoo's putting sometimes can be a little rough, but all decent approach guys. Probably Mav the worst of the three in that. So these are my outrights, and I haven't hit an outright since summer. So take it easy on these if you're coming along.
Dig it. I wonder, is this a small enough an event where, not that books aren't going to be particularly sharp, but given everything else that's going on in the world, that maybe you'll see some higher holds, places that generally are lower, things like that. Again, NBA is opening. We got baseball playoffs. It's NFL season. I know some of these, the tennis lines particularly, we'll get to tennis in a second. Some of these places are a little juicier than they are normally. There's lower offerings. Do you see that same trickle down effect into golf?
Yeah, I just think maybe casual golfers don't want to bet on a tournament that's happening in Japan, because it's like technically this starts on Wednesday because of the time difference. Like it's a weird one. This is kind of like your overnight tennis stuff. There's a lot of people that are not going to be able to watch this live because it's happening at such a goofy time. So I think it's probably a case of that too, where the interest level is lower for the Zozo. It's a weird one. It is like the Japanese tour it's technically a PGA Tour event, but I think the Japanese tour is also sanctioning it. So it's a goofy one that's only been.
It's good to have more sanctions.
Yeah.
Do you get an extra trophy? Do you get like the PGA trophy and the Japanese trophy, like the belts in wrestling?
Yeah, we've only had it for a couple years. Tiger and Cantlay have won it. So this is only the third year of this. It'll be it's a nice purse though. Like it's still a $10 million purse. But yeah, overnight 10, just like you. Me and you betting overnight stuff. You got some overnight stuff for again?
This is actually starting shortly. Moscow has a match. The women are up. Let me just see real quickly when they're up. Looks like it's 12:45 Eastern, so about 50 minutes after we finish the show. Looks like they'll be next up on court one. No, the court one match is done. So yeah, that'll be in about a little less than an hour, about 50 minutes from now, about 40 minutes or so after we finish the show. Elena Rybakina is going to be playing Marketa Vondrasova. Vondrasova having one of the best second halves of the season of really anyone, especially on hard courts. Finished second at the Olympics, has done well at some tournaments since then, but the last couple of weeks has started to slow down a little bit, and we're indoors here. This Moscow tournament is one of the more interesting tournaments because it's in kind of a funky spot late in the calendar year, but it's a bigger event. There's a lot of points, and it's a good spot for certain women, and they really build up to this point towards the end of the year because it is hardcore, but it's also indoors. They don't have a ton of indoor events, and that's really where Rybakina thrives. As I look at this match here, I'm able to get minus 115. I have her close to minus 140, almost 145. So happy to play this at minus 120 or anything better than that, which you should be able to find. Again, this match starts in a little bit. This number is pretty much settled. Probably find as good as minus 110, as bad as minus 120. I think anywhere in between is just fine with me. Like the matchup for her, the other thing to consider, Vondrasova, a lefty, generally not a problem for Rybakina. And again, Rybakina just loves being indoors. You go look at her performances in those tournaments, they're markedly better than everything else, where Vondrasova is just about the same, if not slightly worse, because again, there's not much of an advantage for her to be gained here. So happy to take Rybakina. The market's given it to us basically as, kind of a coin flip, a juiced coin flip, if you will, but some value here for me. I like her quite a bit.
I'm down with that. Single bet. I can't even parlay them tonight.
One shot.
Or this afternoon. I always forget about that.
Shortly.
Is there a Red Sox game today? I'm seeing it on the graphic. I was not even 100%.
There's too much stuff going on for me to have any idea what's going on with this baseball stuff. That's probably not like going on the show, folks. I come on and Andy tells me what happened with the baseball.
I'm going to trust Dan because he made the LCS graphics, and yes, there's 2 baseball games. One of these starts at like 4 in the afternoon. So yeah, that's cool. You have a day game on the West Coast. I dig it. So Braves Dodgers 5:08 Eastern, which is 2 p.m. on the West Coast local time starting. Dodgers are favored. Walker Buehler, Charlie Effin Steakhouse going tonight, and the Dodgers find themselves in a familiar position, down 0-2 here. Clearly the better lineup. Obviously some injuries and some attrition from some of the people that really carried them during the season. Justin Turner kind of looks dumb at the moment, but Walker Buehler is very good. They should be a favorite of this magnitude. I just really dug into. I didn't dig in. Honestly, I'd be lying to you saying I dug in really hard, but I dug in a little to baseball. and I am 3-1 in postseason baseball betting, which feels pretty good for a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Got an easy win last night on the over. Once that I was watching it with the family, and before who's the Cub? Schwarbo hit that bomb. I looked over, I smacked my daughter in the shoulder, said 6-0, and then he hit it out. Never happens. Usually I make calls like that and he strikes out. But that one felt pretty good, especially since I won a bet eventually when the Astros were able to score and make it 9-3. Total 7.5, lower total, good pitching. Dodgers not hitting in clutch spots, not getting it done with runners in scoring position. I don't know if that changes much tonight, but I will be on the Braves again. Taking a little bit of insurance, I guess, although it's cheap. Taking the plus 0.5 in the first 5 innings. Just looking for good starting pitching again on both sides, and the Dodgers to continue to maybe toil a little in tough spots here. So I would like both pitchers to just be perfect through 5. That would be just fine. I don't even care if the Braves score.
Let's do it.
Like just 0-0 for me.
Did you think about an under?
I did, but I'm worried that the Braves are too good, and they might ruin that for me. And it is another low total here. So
Dan.
No, like they're playing really well right now. It's exciting baseball at the moment, and obviously we're listing a 9.5, but it is a juicy 9.5 to the over. There are some books that have moved to 10 for the total in the Astros Red Sox game. The books have no taste for people just taking their money on these overs in Red Sox games now. The Red Sox continue to just rake. Honestly, some former Dodgers are doing it across the these series here with some of the people that are really raking. But yeah, JD Martinez is a stud right now. The Astros are facing a pretty pivotal game. If they go down 3-1 here, that would be awful bad for them, awful bad for Mattress Mac, awful good for anybody who hates them for various reasons. But it's hard for me. Like, who do I cheer for? The team that probably cheated a bunch and got caught, or a Boston sports team? I can't take a rooting interest in this at all. So if you like to just cheer, I would probably just take 10 again. Like, they are inflating these totals, but maybe not enough yet. So no action for me in that one. I will be excited to watch that on a nice Tuesday evening in the fall, though. I think I probably would cheer for Boston. Although LA, it sucks in the NL side. I don't have a way to do this. Like, baseball in the fall in the playoffs should be cold. Like, it should be like 50 degrees. You know what I mean? Like, the pitchers should have a jacket on. People should have long sleeve shirts. Not freezing cold, but I hate really warm baseball in October. I think I'd like to see some World Series games up in Boston. People seeing their breath. That's what I'm cheering for right now. So, and with that, Alex, anything? Just give me your hot take on the NBA out of the blue before we go.
Warriors win the title.
Oh, I like that. Mine is Bulls in the 4 seed.
I like that.
Ooh,
they're gonna win the division?
No, God, no. That's a big ask. So, all right. Well, like, subscribe. Thanks. Do some subscribing to the YouTube channel. Do a thumbs up in the YouTube channel if you're here. Thanks for everyone in the chat for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time. See you then.